Uh, Good afternoon. My name is Tristan Peat. I'm the forward planning team leader for Mid Devon District Council. Thank you ever so much for coming along to and joining us for this is the first of 4 public Zoom meetings that we're doing, which is a way of providing a briefing to everybody about the work that we're doing now for preparing a new local plan for Mid Devon. So thank you ever so much for coming along. Before we start, I just want to go through a few points, is that so that we can run the meeting smoothly and it'll work for all, is that we've turned everybody's microphone off to start off with. We're also not allowing screen share or messaging, but if you have a question, and there will be an opportunity for us to take questions and to answer those at the end of the meeting, is that if you can raise your virtual hand, and then one of my colleagues in the forward planning team then will be able to make a note that you'd like to speak, and we'll then happily bring you in. And then once you've spoken, if you'd be kind to turn your microphone off, so when it's not in use, that'd be really appreciated. We are recording this meeting. If it's any good in the sense of how I deliver it, we may well put it on our website, but we're recording it so that hopefully that we can then provide an opportunity for those that are unable to join, that they'll be able to see the presentation on our website. So I have 3 colleagues from the forward planning team with me who may well speak throughout in terms of helping answer questions. The presentation will last about half an hour, and then there'll be an opportunity for about another 25-30 minutes or so to take questions. So we hope you enjoy the meeting. We hope that you find it also informative, and that you find out more about the work that we're doing for Mid Devon. First of all, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the plan-led system that we have in this country, and how that relates to the work that we're doing in Mid Devon. The planning system is plan-led in the sense that the planning decisions that are made have to have regard to the development plans that are in place for a planning area. And in Mid Devon, the development plan is made up of a number of different documents. So we have the Mid Devon local plan itself, but alongside that, we have the Devon Minerals Plan, the Devon Waste Plan, and currently we have 1 adopted neighbourhood plan, that's for the Clumpton area. There are a number of other neighbourhood plans that are currently being prepared, 2 of which are at fairly advanced stages of preparation and will shortly go through their examination processes and then subject to a referendum each. Those are at Tiverton and Crediton. There's a neighbourhood plan that's fairly advanced for Silverton, and there is work that's been commenced now for Newton St Sires and also for Willand. So we've got quite a healthy interest in Mid Devon in neighbourhood planning, which is great. And once those documents are adopted, they sit alongside and carry the same status as the local plan for Mid Devon and the Devon Minerals and Waste local plans. Currently, we have an adopted Mid Devon local plan that was adopted in July 2020 and has a lifespan to 2033. Now that plan will continue to remain in place until we've adopted a new local plan, and it will continue to bring many, many benefits for Mid Devon. So what we've done on this slide is put together a number of bullet points that just highlight what those benefits are. So the current local plan has elements in it that will help tackle the causes and effects of climate change. It will promote sustainable development and use of energy and other resources. It would also guide multi-million-pound investment across the district. And crucially, it will provide a plan for new homes, employment and other uses to meet our needs. And that also includes the infrastructure that goes along to support that development. So it's new roads, schools, transport, etc., etc. There are policies in to help regenerate our town centres, and also there are policies that are there to protect and enhance those parts of the district where we do not wish to see unplanned development taking place. So principally that's the open countryside, and it's also the high quality landscapes in mid Devon. So you would ask, well, why, if we've got a local plan in place and that runs to 2033, then why do we need a new one? Well, the simple fact is that there is a legal requirement for local planning authorities to review plans every 5 years. And it takes about 5 years to prepare a new local plan. So Mid Devon's taken the early decision is to commence work straight away, having adopted the current Mid Devon local plan, to start preparing a new one. And the advantage of doing that is also, as well, meeting the 5-year review period, is that we can then also have regard to what is now the latest national planning policies and guidance, and also be in a position to have a plan that can reflect a refreshed set of evidence, which includes evidence that tells us about the need for new homes and jobs, etc., etc. The other thing is that the current local plan work started on that in 2013, and that plan was substantially written through 2015 and 2017. And a lot has happened in the world since those dates. We've had the current pandemic, which has impacted on all our lives. With Britain leaving the European Union, has altered a lot of trading relationships with our European partners, and the taking those two together, there is a need to have a further look and support about what we can do for our economy. There's also been, in 2019, the Devon-wide climate change declaration. So this is recognising formally that there is a climate emergency and needing to place that right at the top of the priority in terms of what we need to do to mitigate the effects of climate change, and also to help move towards a greener world, to move towards net zero carbon. So that's a big thing in itself. And also a recent Environment Act and a need to plan for biodiversity net gain. So that's important. And then behind all of this, the government, about 18 months ago, thereabouts, had mooted that there will be reforms to the national planning system. And that includes the way that we prepare local plans. Now, that there is uncertainty about what that will actually mean going forward. There have been delays to the government following this up with any legislation, but the expectation is that the way that we prepare local plans and the planning system more in the round will be subject to reforms going forward. So that is something that is likely to take place within the time frame of us preparing this new local plan, and we need to be mindful of. But taking that all together is that a new local plan for Mid Devon will ensure that the district will continue to benefit from a plan-led approach for development to meet our current and future needs over a longer time period to 2043. And if we don't have an up-to-date adopted local plan, then we run the risk then of having planning decisions made that we can't control or have less control over, because we end up in a situation where it can become planning by appeal. So that's something we don't want. So it's in everyone's interest that we work together to prepare a brand new local plan for Mid Devon for this extended time period. So that brings us to what we're consulting on now. This is the very first stage in preparing a new local plan. What we're looking at are the issues that we need to be thinking about in terms of where we're taking this new local plan. So we're not consulting on a draft plan. We're consulting on a document that is asking, well, what are the most important issues that we need to be thinking about for the future of Mid Devon, and where development should take place and those areas that should be protected. That's what this is about. And it's the very earliest opportunity for everyone to be able to have their say about those issues. So we've written a document where, to be helpful, we've identified what we believe to be the most important issues, and now we're asking everyone to tell us what you think. Are there issues that we've missed that we should be thinking about? And within those issues, we've identified a number of priorities as well. So it's a consultation about issues. There have been no decisions made about where development will take place in the new local plan. That is something that will happen in later stages, and there will be further stages of public consultation, which I will come on to a little bit later on to tell you about. Alongside the issues paper, we have a sustainability appraisal stroke strategic environmental assessment scoping report. That's very technical. It's a legal requirement to do so. When we prepare local plans, those need to be tested in terms of their ability to achieve sustainable development. And that is through a process which we've called sustainability appraisal. And the origins of that is that it's part of the European directive, which is still embodied in our national law presently, for strategic environmental assessment. So that regulatory process is embodied within sustainability appraisal. And whilst we're preparing a local plan, we also need to undertake a sustainability appraisal and test that plan. Also, we are consulting on an equalities impact assessment screening report, and that is about fairness and transparency, and that the document is one that's accessible to all, people of all backgrounds and abilities, that it's an easily understood document, etc. So that's another consultation document. So there are 3 documents, and there is an opportunity for anyone to be able to comment on those. So what's in the issues paper? Well, I've mentioned about issues. I'll come and give you a bit more flavour of those in a moment, but sitting above all of those, to be helpful, we've identified what we believe should be the 6 top priorities that will set the direction of a new local plan. And those are shown in the diagram on the right-hand side of the screen. And the top priority that we believe sit above the other 5 is responding to the climate emergency and moving to a net zero carbon future. The reason why we've done that is that, firstly, having regard to climate change is enshrined within the Planning Act. So it's a legal requirement to have regard to climate. The second thing is that, we've had the climate emergency declarations that I've referred to in 2019, but there was also a very influential document that was published in October of last year by the 2 top professional planning bodies in this country, so the Town and Country Planning Association and the Royal Town Planning Institute. And that document was making absolutely clear that that mitigating the effects of climate change, moving to net zero, that should be the overarching priority for planning decisions and also for plan making in this country. So we've followed from that and agree that that should be placed at the top. So that's our reasoning for that. So we have 6 priorities, and then the issues paper includes 17 chapters that explore those priorities in more detail and cover a range of themes and matters relevant to the future planning of Mid-Devon. There's a slide coming up, and that will just flesh some of those out, and just so that you can get a flavour for what's in the issues paper. We've also asked 58 questions. Now, you don't have to answer all of them, but we very much welcome and encourage that you look at those questions and answer those that you wish to answer, to try and help us. There is a question at the end that asks about have we missed anything, so there is ample opportunity to cover things that perhaps aren't mentioned in the issues paper. But I would reiterate that this document, I say, is not about making important decisions now. That will come at later stages in the plan making, and this is the very beginning, and there is a very substantial amount of technical work that Mid-Devon Council needs to do to help inform the new local plan, and I'll come on to a little bit about that. So further consultation will take place in the summer of 2023, and that will be a draft policies and site options document, and then followed a year later, mid-2024, with a draft plan. So, and both of those stages will be subject to public engagement, and we'll have similar exercises like face-to-face meetings, Zoom meetings, etc. But that will all come at a later stage. So I keep mentioning about, well, what's in the issues paper. This is a list broadly of what's in it. So we talk about a vision for Mid-Devon. There are chapters that talk about planning for net zero carbon. So that's renewable energy, greener buildings, reduced travel. There's a chapter about digital technologies, and that's access to broadband and mobile phone coverage. Then we get into a chapter about housing affordability and types of new homes needed, modern methods of construction, custom and self-build, etc. Now, we do mention about the government standard method to the number of homes that need to be met within Mid-Devon, which is a minimum figure, but we don't explore that further in this issues consultation. Anything about housing numbers and sites and specific locations for where development should take place, that will follow next year in the draft policies and site options consultation document. So we've been quite clear that this is purely about issues and not about housing numbers. And I think that's a very good way to start off thinking about preparing a plan, because we think about getting some of the, answering some of the big questions about the plan, about design, about nature conservation, landscape, the types of housing need, health and well-being, etc., before we start to look at development and where that might take place. So that's how we're thinking about preparing this new plan. Then there are sections in the plan which are about supporting businesses and about infrastructure. Quite a lengthy chapter about heritage assets, landscape and biodiversity. And there are a number of questions in there about tree planting as well, and about carbon sequestration. And then design and beauty of buildings. The current and most recent national planning policy framework really does beef up the language about getting high quality design, and it introduces the word beauty into the planning world. So a question we're asking, well, because it's not defined in a national level, what do you think is meant by the term beauty in shaping our places and design of buildings? Then encouraging and supporting healthy lifestyles. We want to really make that a thing in this plan. Some of you may know that the origins of the town and country planning system has fallen out of public health acts in the last century. So the origins of planning very much is about health and well-being. So, and we want to bring that back into the fore of this local plan. Then the chapter about supporting our town centres. So that's Tiverton, Crediton and Clumpton. And what should those town centres look like going forward in the future? Should they still maintain a high proportion of shops, or should we seek to introduce a range of other uses, leisure uses, recreation, or even residential and a living above shops? So there are questions that we put about that. A key part about this document, and it stems from one of the priorities that we identified earlier, is that Mid-Devon is predominantly a rural district. So it's very easy to talk about what's going on about the three main towns and where the focal point of development has been in previous planned strategies. But what about the rural areas? So what we have asked some questions about in this issues paper is about maintaining the vitality and viability and prosperity of rural areas, and thinking about, well, do we need to perhaps rethink the notion of sustainability of rural areas? Should we be allowing a limited amount of more growth in the rural areas to support the rural communities? So, for example, where families are having to move away from places where they've grown up with because they just can't afford to live there. There's not enough new homes being provided. So can this plan enable a bit more flexibility for local people to live locally? And then the issues paper also talks about Junction 27. The current local plan identifies land adjacent to Junction 27 on the M5 for a major leisure destination and retailing. Is that something that we still want to do? Should we be rethinking it? So we've asked a question about that. And finally, Com Garden Village. Mid Devon District Council was one of the first 17 to get government approval to take forward a proposal for a new garden village. And this has been identified to the east of Clumpton at junction 28 off the M5. So that is something that needs to be thought about in preparing a new local plan for Mid Devon. Part of the concept of the Com Garden Village is already established through the current adopted Mid Devon local plan, but there is a large part that isn't, and we need to think about through preparing this brand new local plan. So that's some of the content of the new local plan. So let me just move on now to about the consultation and where you can find out more. So it's an 8-week consultation. It starts on the 31st of January and run through to the 28th of March. And on our website, we have a lot of information about the issues paper and about preparing new local plans. So we have the consultation documents themselves that can be viewed and downloaded. We will have a short series of videos that will be placed on the web page as we move forward through the consultation. So the first of those is an introduction by Councillor Richard Chesterton, who is the Cabinet Member for Planning and Economic Regeneration for Mid Devon District Council. So he's introduced that we're preparing a new local plan. There will be some further short videos that we intend to do that will explain a little bit more on a sort of thematic level about Plan Mid Devon. We also have story maps, which is a more interactive version of the issues paper that using your cursor, you can move down the page and then different images pop up. So it's a bit more interactive and user-friendly. And the survey for answering the 58 questions that we have, we've now done that online, so it's easier to for anyone to make comments and send them back to us. So that's online as well. So in addition to that, we'll be posting new material on Facebook as we progress through the consultation. So there's some social media presence there, and I think we may also be using Twitter as well. I'd have to check on that. And then in terms of our engagement events, so we have a number of online events. So we have 2 general briefings about Plan Mid Devon issues consultation. This is the first of those. And then we have also 2 public Zoom sessions, which are more topic based. So there's the first of those will be on Thursday evening this week, and that will have a focus about climate change and moving to net zero. And then I think it's next week that we'll be that there's a further one on housing. So details of those will be on our website. And following the government's removal of the Plan B restrictions in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now organising 3 drop-in events, one at each of the 3 main towns. Those will take place through probably starting the end of February into March. So we're going to hire some venues and have some exhibition boards, and that'll be more sort of conventional engagement where there'll be some planning officers present, and you'll all be welcome to come along and find out a little bit more about Plan Mid Devon and ask us questions face to face. So there's a bit of a mixture there of both face to face and online ways to engage. So in terms of the timetable for Plan Mid Devon, this diagram shows where we're at the moment. So we have the Regulation 18 issues consultation. That is where we are now. So it's January to March. Next summer, we have draft policies and site options consultation. The following summer, this is in 2024, we have what we call the draft plan. And this is the plan that we'll consult on. And then following that consultation, we will then submit to the government for it to be subject to an independent examination, which we think will take place in late 2024 into May 2025, thereabouts. And finally, then it's our expectation to be able to adopt the new local plan in around July of 2025. So that's within 5 years from where we are now. And once that new plan is adopted, then that will replace the current adopted Mid-Devon local plan. So that's is our timetable. So that is a briefing for where we're at with planning for Mid-Devon. The new local plan called Plan Mid-Devon then this is the start of our journey. Hopefully you've all found that briefing really helpful. I'll finish there, but what